What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. It's been a while since I've done a video where it's just kind of me talking to you. It's a lot easier to, of course, pull up some screenshots and things like that. But I figured I would talk about writing a little bit and get something going where we can, have a little connection and things like that. Things are going good over here, doing a lot of writing myself. But I'll get into today's topic, and that is writing fiction with messages. And there's been a lot of talk back and forth about how fiction shouldn't have messages. You're just trying to have escapism, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm all for escapism and fun. We have a definite new pulp aesthetic with everything that we do around these parts and with around the people that also write in my circles. But there is a line that needs to be drawn, and that is where people do the comics should be apolitical nonsense. And what happens when people get into that is they start to lose the semblance of story. Because the minute that you say that there should be no messages, that there should be no politics, there should be nothing there, you lose any possible semblance of story. And that happens because you will always inject your values into a comic book. To have a hero has to do something heroic. And to do something heroic, you have to be a person who is having the characteristics of a hero, or being brave, being bold and dramatic, who's trying to fight for something that is a positive thing. And when you get into positive and negatives, you're going to make a value judgment as a person. It just is what it is. Spider-Man fights the Green Goblin because the Green Goblin is insane and everybody wants to kill him. And wants to kill everybody around him. The Green Goblin is objectively a bad person that needs to be stopped. Superman fights Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor wants to dominate the entire world and believes that it's all owed to him because of all of the money he's amassed. That is greed to its excesses, which is a bad thing, and it must be stopped. Batman fights a thief or a criminal and tries to track down what goes on because that person has violated the rights of another person by stealing from them or trying to injure them or whatnot. That's objectively a bad thing. And that is a value judgment. It's a message that thing is bad, and it is a political judgment. So where really they're trying to talk you into changing your stories and all that is they're trying to tell you don't be controversial. And this is also a misnomer, because controversial doesn't mean anything from one minute to the next. At this point, just being a normal Christian American and actually being proud to be an American is a, quote, controversial statement. It shouldn't be, but it is. And therefore, according to these people, you would leave any of that out of your comic books, out of your books, and out of your works because you don't want to incite any controversy. But ironically, the people who spout this the loudest try to be the most controversial online themselves. Of course, I'm talking about Ethan Van Sciver and his cronies. They yell about this all the time, and yet what they're spending their time doing in the last few days is actually hunting down the past of a small independent comic creator to try to destroy him as a person. You want to talk about being controversial and being disgusting? That's about as far as it goes on that level. But looking into his works itself, if you look into Cyberfrog, I've done a review of it, and it really is just a bunch of pictures strung together that don't really have any meaning. There's nothing going on there. There's no heroism going on there. There's nothing to root for. The bad alien bees or whatever they are obviously trying to take over the world, and you kind of don't want that, and you don't want everybody to die, but there's no motivations. There's nothing interesting there. There's nothing to connect to. And that's because he did intentionally try to not have his own personal emotions invested into the book. As an artist, you'll never make good art doing that. And that's why the book is so awful. And it just looks like a bunch of pieces of digital art strung together with no purpose. Now, even with that, he wasn't able to take all of his politics out of it, as he put in a scene which was very out of place in the book, which just has Bill Clinton talking about Monica Lewinsky in there, as if it's like some sort of like 90s commentary on politics that don't matter from 30 years ago. Like, that's not going to be controversial. Of course, that was done intentionally, and everything these guys say just doesn't end up adding up. So here's the deal. You have to write what you are about. You have to put your own morals into something. You have to show what you believe is right as heroism, because it's going to come through your passion as a writer. And when you try to inject your passion into a book, it's going to show, it's going to read more real, the story's going to feel more true, and you will be doing your audience a service in entertaining them. And this is a big deal. But it also has to be objectively true, because objective truth exists. What we found in the comic industry lately is a lot of these comic industry books just don't have heroism as much anymore. They're all about the anti-hero. They're about like a flawed person who's just like barely able to do what's right because like, I guess I gotta. And when you read that, you just kind of feel disgusted, because it tells you that the world is an ugly place, that everything's just cancer all around you, that there's nothing you can really do about it at the end of the day. Tom King's Batman is a great example of this, because you read those first opening issues, and I didn't read far into the series. I got sick of it pretty quickly. But the Batman issues has Batman just sitting around moping that he really does no good, because these criminals come back over and over again. And because of his strong moral values against killing and all that, he just can't get anywhere, and he just hates it. And it's just sad and depressing. Well, that sort of thing is not an objective truth. In reality, if you put away a criminal, that criminal's off the streets, people are saved. This is how it works. Of course, in the DC universe, where now it's issue 1000 and he has to fight the Joker the umpteenth time, it doesn't work, because that doesn't ring true. It doesn't have any value. It doesn't have any purpose to it anymore. And that's why those stories don't work anymore, in essence. So you have to have objective truth. You have to have values. You can't just go in and write a book that just says a girl is a boy and a boy is a girl, and then call it a day, because it doesn't ring true. It doesn't reflect reality. It doesn't reflect what's beautiful. It doesn't reflect what's right. And so I am saying that the opposite needs to be said. It's not apolitical things that need to be put into books to make them good or interesting. It's correct and true value judgments that need to be put into books. And so I'm going to be changing that. And I came to this conclusion last year, a couple of years ago, maybe, when I started making my book, Justified Saga of the Nano Templar. I was like, okay, we're not going to just do trite stuff anymore. We're going to actually reflect a strong Christianity that's a good thing, that is a positive influence on the universe around. And that's what we did. And that's also what I'm doing with my book, The Cosmic Warrior, who's going to be a actual Christian person thrust into a situation and using his faith to solve problems in the universe, because that's what people do in reality. But I'm going to go a step further. And there was a book out last year called Superman Smashes the Klan. And this Superman Smashes the Klan made me roll my eyes. It's actually not a bad book when it comes down to it, but the concept made me roll my eyes, because all of these books over and over and over and over again just go and hit this like phantom white supremacy that is supposed to be a big threat to everybody. But honestly, that's not been a threat since like, the 1930s. So this was set back in that era. And so it does work out, because it does ring true with reality back in the 1930s. But it also just hits on a note that is culturally irrelevant to now. And so it's just not that fun. Now, here's something that is going to trigger people and will be culturally relevant to now. And what I've done is created a sort of, I guess, a antithesis to that. Metaman crushes the commies. Now you want to say, well, I mean, if the Klan is not an old thing, the commies is certainly not a new thing that's either. That's untrue. If you look at communist China and honestly, let's be honest, the virus that they've unleashed upon the world this last year, which was grown in a lab, if we're honest, people. There's a lot of threats coming down, and it's a big threat to humanity. And so a real hero would take on something like that. And it is relevant to today much more than some sort of a Klan thing, which, I mean, maybe there's a couple hundred quote Klan people out there, but those people are relegated to the sidelines. Nobody actually takes them seriously. It's a joke. And I haven't heard of the Klan going out and killing somebody in since 1950 something. So, but communists kill people every day. And that is the truth of our reality right now. And so I'm going to put objective truth into our books. It's going to upset some people, but you know what? It's going to be a good book because it will have a hero that's fighting for something that's right and fighting against true evil. And that is what we need in comic books and science fiction. Put in truth and put in falsehoods as evil, and you will see that your stories shine a lot more. All right. Hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below, and we will be back soon with another Comics Writer Pro Secrets. See you.